Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the FrEEK Show. I'm Monk. As you can see, we're joined here with special guest today, Lee.
Hello.
Lee's a good friend of Moose, and originally me and Moose did record this one, but due to some technical difficulty, it did not record her sound or reactions at all. So, yeah, Lee volunteered to step in. This is a great episode, too. It's something that we've never done before on the FrEEK Show. And Lee, you go and you watch a lot of our videos, right?
Yeah, a lot.
Do you have any guess what it could be?
You said art, right? Or you said art as in drawing, right? Or am I stupid?
No, you watch a lot of our videos.
Oh, yes.
Do you have any idea
you
what it might
gave
be?
me
Sorry.
You gave me no hints earlier today. So it could be a lot of things, but seeing that it's this time of year, it could be Mothman. That's
It's not
one.
because
It's not Mothman.
Moose already did Mothman.
Ah, then I have no idea. I'm going into this completely blind.
So,
And I have glasses, so that's saying something.
So, alright, how about if I do this? Anything?
Nothing at all.
Aliens.
Oh my god!
We are doing a video about aliens today.
Yes!
More
Aliens is my
specifically,
jam.
we are actually doing the abduction case of Barney and Betty Hill, which is actually one of the first, like, well-known, popularized UFO alien abduction stories ever. So this is like, this is like the granddaddy of them all. All right. So, are you ready to learn about Barney and Betty Hill?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do this. All right, so Barney and Betty Hill were a couple who were married in like the late 50s, early 60s. I wasn't able to exactly find like an exact year that they were married, but Barney was a former military man, and he actually was a postal worker at the time. And then Betty was a social worker. Both of them were also civil rights activists, with Barney being a leader of like the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. They were an interracial couple. Barney was black and Betty was white. I feel like it's important to put that in there, especially for the time of it too. Like, it's not something that was often done at that time.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, a lot of people of color didn't really start getting rights until, like, around that time.
Yeah.
And, like,
and
bleeding into the 60s, too. So
they
the
were
fact
like,
that this made waves
yes.
is, like, really important.
Yeah, and the fact that they were so heavily involved in it, too. Is just, like, he was a leader in it, pretty much. Like, they were both, like, huge into the civil rights movements for colored people. Anyway, in 1961, they had an impromptu vacation to Niagara Falls and Montreal. And when I say impromptu, I mean impromptu. They literally went and was just like, hey, let's go on vacation. Bank is closed, and we got $70 in our pocket. Let's go.
What a time to be alive
I
when
know.
you could go across the country's borders with $70.
That's exactly what I said to Moose.
What a time to be alive.
So, on September 19th, 1961, they were heading back to their home in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Around 10:30 at night, just south of Lancaster, New Hampshire, they noticed a bright light in the sky. The couple first thought that maybe it was a planet or a satellite, but then they noticed that it was moving, so they thought, well, maybe it's a plane. But they noticed something wasn't quite right about it. So they had stopped the car on the side of the road. Betty took the dog for a quick walk just to go to the bathroom, and Barney grabbed his binoculars to see what this thing could be. He was shocked to see it was a disc-shaped craft with windows all around the sides of it, and he could make out 13 humanoid beings standing in the windows. He remembers kind of hearing a thought in his head of just stay there, just keep watching. And at this point, Barney was just like, we got to get back in the car. They're going to try to capture us. And they started to drive, kind of erratically, just trying to get away from this thing that was coming towards them. They remembered hearing a humming or beeping sound coming from the trunk, and then all goes black.
Oh no. You said like just keep watching, and it just reminded me of that TikTok sound. What's poppin'? Don't mind me just watching.
Not that big on TikTok myself, so
Oh
I have no
no.
idea what you're talking about. I'm sorry.
Ask Moose. Moose will know.
She'll probably end up sending me the link after she watches this video. Um,
She'd be like, "This is what Lee was talking about." But oh, could you imagine like the terror of like going on this impromptu vacation with $70? What a time to be alive. But then like you see this thing and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna take these binoculars and look," and there are three whole ass possibly people looking at
13.
you from this
13 people.
13. Oh no. Whoa.
Yeah, and at
There
one
are
point
13
he
whole.
said that all of them but one turned around and walked away, and he believes that it was someone that was still looking at him that said, just keep watching.
Ah! Could you imagine like the terror of
And
just
then
being like
hearing that humming or beeping, like
the
coming
the
from the back of their
telepathy is
car.
what gets me. Like, get out of
Yeah.
my head. No. Oh my God.
Yep. So they end up coming to about 35 miles away from where they last remember being, about 2 hours later. They had no
Oh,
real recollection of what had happened. They went and they drove home, and they were trying to discuss things to see what they could remember, but they ended up noticing different things, such as, for instance, their watches just stopped working. It would never work again. Barney's shoes, which were his nice shoes, mind you, they were all scuffed and cut up to the point that he had to get new shoes. The leather strap on his binoculars was torn. Betty noticed that her dress was torn in multiple places, as well as there being some kind of pink powder in certain spots on it. Another odd thing is that they noticed that on the trunk of the car, there was strange circles all over it. And when they brought a compass towards the circles, the compass would start spinning as if there was some kind of like magnetic interference.
oh my gosh.
Yep. And here, let me show you a picture real quick, just because I forgot to send it. Where is it? Where the fuck is it?
Oh no.
Oh no. Okay. So this is actually a sketch of what they said that they saw that night. They managed to draw out like a sketch of what they believe that they saw. Those little things on the side, they said that they just kind of came out from the sides randomly, like bat wings or something. I think they referred to it as.
I looked at this, and the first thing I thought of was like a panini, and then the second
Bar-
thing I thought of, the second thing I thought of was like those those cookie tins that are at your grandma's house that you
Yeah,
think are full of cookies but are
but
full of
they're
salt and
yeah.
spice.
So
Oh,
Barney
that's horrifying.
actually had described it, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But he at one point described it as being pancake shaped, but with the glass windows around the sides.
That's
So
uh,
the next day, Betty had called her sister to tell her what had happened. Her sister said, like years before, that she has seen a UFO. Her sister suggested to call the nearest Air Force base and report it. When Betty called and made the report, she had left out certain details, mainly the figures seen in the windows, so as to not appear crazy. The base confirmed that there was something on their radar that night that they didn't know what it was. A major with the Air Force ended up coming to their house, contacting them to look into it and like some more information. Well, the major had originally reported the couple had just seen Jupiter.
Pump the
This.
brakes. Homeboy looked at these folks and said, "Yeah, you saw a whole ass planet.
Yeah.
You saw the planet was moving. It had lights. I don't know when Jupiter turned into a rave, but now I want to go to space."
Now you want to? I always want to.
I don't know. Space is scary.
So,
Space can be scary.
so that original, uh, report saying that it was Jupiter, it ended up getting thrown out and ended up getting
As it
changed.
should.
It got changed like 3 or 4 times before it was actually changed to like inconclusive.
Okay.
So, the incident was also reported to NICAP, or the National Investigation Committee of Aerial Phenomenon.
Ooh.
So, aside from family and the military, the Hills didn't tell anybody about what had happened. Betty would start looking into UFOs and aliens, though. Also, about 10 days after the incident, she started having dreams, and they lasted for 5 days. She describes them as the most vivid dreams she had ever had in her entire life. She believed that these were actually memories of what had happened. She remembers being brought on board, several different tests that were run on her. She said that they actually communicated with them, and they showed her a map of where they were from. And Betty said that the leader originally handed her a book and told her that she could keep it, but then there was apparently a dispute between the other beings, and they decided that she would be better not remembering.
I mean, yeah.
Well, apparently she swore. She was just like, I'll remember one day. One of these days I will remember. I don't know when it will be, but I will remember what had happened. So she believes that these dreams were what happened. The Hills kept what happened to themselves, and Barney would try to forget anything happened, but Betty could not. In 1962, they disclosed her story with a captain of the U.S. Air Force who was visiting their church. He was kind of like visiting, speaking on hypnosis and stuff like that. And the couple asked him if he would hypnotize them, but he declined, saying he's an amateur and that could be dangerous. The Hills first made their story public, telling their church what had happened. The Air Force base, or the Air Force captain, would then direct them to a Dr. Simon for hypnosis treatment to see what could be remembered. In January of '64, the Hills would start hypnosis sessions that would last until June of that same year. What are your thoughts so far?
Do you like this is a really weird question. I grew up religious.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what branch of like what denomination their church was?
That I don't know,
Does it
but
say?
why? But why a Air Force captain would be there talking about hypnosis? I'm not quite sure, unless he was like trying to
The
say like it's safe. It's not like what
it's either
people think
safe
it
or it's
is.
Satan. But
But
the
with the
reason
way
why I
that
asked
he
it,
was there talking about it was like he was kind of promoting it in a way. Like he was talking about the benefits of it.
that sounds like Pentecostal. Don't quote me on this. My mother grew up Pentecostal, and I disclaimer: I'm not dogging on any form of Christianity. I'm just saying that's what it sounds like. Don't come at me. Don't come at Monk. Leave Muslim. I'm just saying that's exactly what it sounds like. But
I mean, it could have
But
been. I wasn't able to find any kind of information as far as like what kind of church it was.
yeah, because like I grew up Baptist, my mother grew
Mm-hmm.
up Pentecostal, and Pentecostal folks are a lot more like, at least back then, my mother grew up with it in the 70s and the 80s. They were more in tune to like the supernatural stuff, like
Yeah.
snake handling and speaking in tongues and like having a direct line to God or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So that would make a lot of sense. But hypnosis, rocking up to this Dr. Simon with with them already being like the pariah of the time, and then being like, "Hey, we think we got kidnapped by aliens. Can you like make us remember stuff?" Can you imagine that doctor going home to his wife and having to explain his day at work? Like,
Yeah.
how was work, honey? Sweetheart,
Well,
listen.
I guess he did a lot of regressive memory hypnosis. So like he specifically tried helping people remember things that were like buried in their subconscious.
Like childhood trauma and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
Just imagine being like, yeah, these folks came into the office today. They want me to bring up, see if they were abducted by aliens. And I and homie's got to be professional because that's his job. He's got to keep a straight face. He can't laugh at
Yeah.
these people. Can you imagine what was going through this dude's head in like that time period, being like, these folks aliens?
Real.
Because you got to remember, like less than like right around 20 some years before was when the War of the World things happened.
Yes.
Like when it was played on the radio and everyone lost their minds because they thought it was the news.
Mm-hmm.
So that was still within the time of being like,
Yeah.
man, maybe these folks
Things
are just,
knew, like people knew and heard about aliens, but there wasn't any actual proof of it.
yeah.
And a lot of people just kind of chalked it all up to science fiction. So Dr. Simon had both Barney and Betty have separate sessions so that they couldn't go off what the other one had said. And keep in
Yeah.
mind, with Betty's dreams, she told maybe the first two dreams to Barney, and Barney said, I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear any more about this.
Barney's like, I don't want to know. And she's like, I gotta. She's like, I have to have answers.
Yeah, he was just like, I don't want to know. And he was just like, I don't want to hear about the dreams. I don't want to hear anything. Anything that you find out or discover, I don't want to hear it. Um, so both Barney and Betty remembered in detail the gray aliens in the black suits that would perform different tests on them, such as hair and skin samples, nail clippings. Betty remembered them sticking a large needle into her belly button, and Barney recalled them placing a cup over his genitalia. And while he didn't have an orgasm, he's certain that they took a sperm sample from him. Keep in mind, this is all under hypnosis. And you can actually find the hypnosis tapes for Barney Hill on YouTube. I listened to some of them. And the sheer terror in his voice was just crazy.
My YouTube recommended has already got me on a watch list. That's just gonna send it home.
And then, so Betty was actually able to recall the star map that she had seen in detail and was even able to draw a diagram of it. And Barney was even able to go and just kind of draw a little sketch of the aliens that he saw. So here is the picture of the alien.
Why? I'm not trying to make light of this. Why does it remind me of an angry strawberry?
A little bit. A little
I'm
bit.
sorry. I
Um,
I like how, like, the thing on top, is that a hat? Is that its
it's
hair? Is
supposed
that
to
its
be a
dome?
hat. They said that they remember them wearing black caps, kind of like berets. They refer
I
to
was
them
about ready
as
to
like
say that looks like,
military style cap.
yeah. And the shape of the eyes is really interesting.
Yeah, he actually made a lot of emphasis on the eyes. He even reported like feeling as if like the eyes were pushing into him.
Oh, oh God. Ooh, I
Yeah,
hate that. I hate that so much. Ah,
so
ooh.
yeah, he even under the hypnosis tapes, he's just like the eyes. Oh God, the eyes. And
Oh, ugh. I'm
um,
gonna have to like listen to that after this
he
and then
did
just
go.
be uncomfy for the rest of my life.
He did go and like mention in the hypnosis tapes also like the slanting of the eyes there. And
Hmm.
he actually said, and this is a quote. He said, "The eyes are slanted, but not like a Chinaman's." He also referred to one of them as saying that it reminded him of a redheaded Irishman. And when the doctor asked, "What do you mean by that?" and this is all quoted from him. Like I said, you can go and check out the hypnosis tapes online. But
Hmm.
he said because redheaded Irishmen don't or they typically aren't nice to Negroes, but this man was nice to me, so I make a point whenever there's a nice redheaded Irishman to be nice in return.
I'm sorry, that kind of made me sad.
Right?
Oh.
But yeah, his descriptions were kind of weird, um, but understandable in a way because if you don't know how else to describe something, then you're gonna describe it however you can, you know.
Yeah, you're gonna use the best to your knowledge.
And then going back to Betty's star map, this is what she managed to sketch out for the star map. And
Okay,
keep in mind when
so
she saw it, she said that it was in 3D or holographic. It
ooh.
was holographic.
So like this whole the two circles and the lines connecting them, is that like two planets? Is that like the thing that they were in?
I'm not
Or
quite
is that
sure.
like
To be honest, I'm not quite sure um, exactly what that is, but supposedly the straight lines are like if you notice there are straight lines and there's also dotted lines.
yeah.
And one is like a trade route and the other one is like a lesser known route or a less traveled route. But they're supposedly from that area. Um
It
so
seems like they it seems like they met some aliens that were just doing work and then got bored and decided to fuck around with some people. I
could have been.
mean, like they were mostly unharmed when they were brought back. Like
Yeah,
that some of
aside
their
from their possessions being kind of fucked up,
yeah, their possessions
but
being
they
all messed up.
also felt like really weird um, compulsions to do things. Like Barney kept on checking his genitalia, and Betty found it like necessary to keep luggage by the door for some reason.
That is a paranoia thing.
Yeah,
That is 100% a acute paranoia type thing. But after going through that, you would if you weren't paranoid,
what's
then
wrong
I would be
with
worried.
it?
Like, are you sure about that?
All right, so back to the star map. Much later, it was actually thought to be from Zeta, the Zeta Reticuli system,
Hmm.
something that wasn't even really known about back in the 60s, but it's commonly thought to be the star system that gray aliens come from. Like, there's a whole theory behind it. Now, Carl Sagan did say no to this theory, but it's still a theory. I like to put that out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they remembered everything from the abduction, uh, like from the time that they were like pulled off the road, pretty much. Like they were signaled to pull off the road, and they drove into like a bright light kind of thing, and they were pulled out of the car and like pulled on board. Like, they remember everything from that to the moment that they were back in their car and they were told to wait until the ship departed before continuing their drive. All this they remembered under hypnosis, and the doctor tried not letting them remember. Like, he was taking precautions so that they wouldn't remember any of this. Especially with the way that they both have breakdowns during their sessions. Apparently, with one of Betty's, she was so distraught and upset that they had to shut down the session early because she was in hysterics. So,
I mean, yeah.
The Hills.
Like,
go ahead.
I was just being like, because that can be considered a traumatic experience. Like, you and your partner just like being impulsed to like do all these things, and then you don't remember anything, and then you're like, hey, I need to remember, I need to know what's going on, and then it's almost like getting more than what you asked for.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's just I hate that so much.
So the Hills would go on to speak at a few conferences about their incident, and they gave their accounts in a couple of reports, but other than that, they didn't seek out any fame from their story. Betty's niece, Kathleen Martin, believed them so much and was like so determined to prove all this that she is now a top researcher of aerial phenomenon as well as founder of MUFON, or the Mutual UFO Network. So while there are different theories about what had actually happened that night, this is the first big reported story of alien abduction, as well as the first big case of gray aliens as well.
Oh my goodness.
So, thoughts?
Thoughts, theories, sarcastic comments. That's just insane because, alright, let's backtrack a little bit. You said 62, right?
61 is when it happened.
61 is when it happened.
61 is when it happened. They didn't tell anybody until 62 or 63, and then in 64 is when they went under hypnosis.
Alright, so this was about a 4 to 5 year ordeal.
Yep.
So let's take into account like the time period that it happened. Like, Barney was just getting rights. Betty was just getting rights. It was a very tumultuous time, to say anything super controversial, especially for both of them.
And one of the theories is that it was a stress-induced hallucination that they both shared. That is a theory, and the stress was brought on by them being an interracial couple, even though both of them were like, no, we never felt any real stress from that.
Yeah, it'd be like one of those things, like you said, they're like, oh, it was just stress. Like, no, it's not stress. Like, we're perfectly fine. We're perfectly happy.
So,
like, we know what's going on.
Both the major, or not the major, but the captain that they spoke to about it, who like directed them to Dr. Simon, him and Dr. Simon both believe that what had happened exactly the way that they described it happening, with a few minor human error differences, such as like height and distance and size of things and stuff like that, and exact times. Other than that type of stuff, they believe that the Hills actually believe that all this happened to them.
Oh my goodness. It's just insane to think about, like I said, the time period where everything happened, how it happened, how they had to mentally deal with it, because mental health wasn't a big thing back then either.
Yeah.
Especially
and
for
hypnosis.
Pretty new.
It was extremely new, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's like new agey or whatever," and it's not
Spooky.
until like recent years that it's kind of become like a standard type of thing.
Yeah. But oh goodness. And just the detail in which they were able to describe it, and the fact that the details linked up so nicely.
Yeah. And like, especially like with the way that they both described it happening. Like when it first happened, Barney straight up remembers, like, at one point in the hypnosis, he's just like, they're coming, I have to get my gun. Betty, run, run, he's screaming. And under hypnosis, he remembers
Oh,
having his eyes closed throughout most of the ordeal because he was so scared. And you can hear the fear in his voice as he's talking. Um, but they both remember
gosh.
being taken from the car. Betty did not go without a fight. Betty was like throwing haymakers all over the place. She's just like, no. Um,
So she.
and then
God.
Barney wasn't able to give as many details because he had his eyes closed, which Betty even confirmed in her hypnosis session that his eyes were closed.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's just crazy that they both remember being taken out, brought inside, separated. Betty was like, "No, I want to go with him. Where's my husband?" And they're like, "This is going to go a lot faster if we do this separately than it would be if we did it with both of you guys together." Like
Yeah.
they told her this, and they both recall while I guess hearing them speak, but their mouths weren't moving, which again goes into that whole telepathic thing.
Oh God. That just that whole thing just gives me the heebie-jeebies anyway. Like that's just ugh. Ooh, I hate that. I hate that so much. But like, that's,
And the pink
it's
powder that was on Betty's dress, that has been analyzed many times. And all that they're really able to get from it is that there's oils and proteins on there that did not come from Betty.
so like did it say like the consistency of the powder? Like was it like a flour consistency?
I
Was it like
that
a
I'm not
dust?
sure of. That I'm not sure of.
Oh, goodness gracious. Could you imagine?
I'm assuming
Just
like a powder. The way that it was kind of described was like a powder.
yeah. I just oh my goodness. I've heard this story before. I I've watched and listened to theories about this story before, and it's always been jarring because there was another one where it was two men that had sort of like similar encounters, and like it was really choppy about how they remembered things, but this is the one that like always kind of like struck me because
Well, first of all, it's the very first one.
yeah, it's
Like,
like the groundbreaking one, and
mm-hmm.
like the fact that like immediately other people believe them, like their family, the captain they talked to, the doctors, like yeah, that happened. And then like two people who have fancy pieces of paper, the captain and the doctor, saying that this happened.
Yeah,
It's
multiple
pretty
people who have looked into it have said they're telling the truth as far as they know. Like, as far as the Hills believe, it is the truth.
that almost makes it worse because like
But
they the Air Force said that it was on the radar, that they seen something on the radar that they didn't know. So like indirectly it's being confirmed from like other sides.
yep.
Like Air Force is like, yeah, there was something in the sky. We don't know what it is.
But then
Cool, whatever.
there's also a bunch of people who believe that this is all fake. And maybe not like they made it up, but maybe subconsciously they made it all up. Like they created this whole thing in their head, and especially since it's like 3 year difference between when it happened and their hypnosis, a lot of people believe that maybe just like as time went on and them just learning about it and hearing stuff about it and stuff like that, that maybe it like became a false memory.
That makes sense.
And I guess there were some similarities between Barney's recollection and a story from the TV show The Outer Limits, which had premiered 2 weeks before they underwent hypnosis the first time.
Hmm.
So a lot of people are also kind of like, well, maybe it's just from that. Like, not necessarily that they're like big fat liars, but maybe like they have this false memory of it.
Like it's like they just took different pieces from the subconscious and created this thing that
Exactly.
they believe is real,
Exactly. That's what some
but it's
people
not.
believe, yeah.
Oh my god.
I find it really interesting, though, that in this story, it has so many similarities with later stories from people. You know, it's like at the time that this happened, these were not normal things. Like, it was not a normal, like, thing to be abducted by aliens, for them to go and be poking and prodding you. Um, like, even describing the aliens. Like, there were no real descriptions of any of that stuff happening. The time loss, the 2 hour time loss, like, while a lot of this stuff is common now in abduction stories, back then, this wasn't the case at all. Like, this is like the granddaddy that started them all. Like, every other
Yeah.
story is kind of full, like, based around this in a weird way.
Like these were the like the trailblazers, the groundbreakers
Exactly.
for this.
Exactly.
Ugh.
So it's really interesting to think about it that way. So I mean, after that, pretty much every other story was just like, "I was abducted by gray aliens," you know.
Like, yeah, these folks back in the 60s were too. Can you be a little bit more specific?
Which ones exactly was it?
Which ones? Did they tell you where they were from? Anything. But
Well,
like,
there
oh,
are other stories about, like I said. Have you ever heard of Bob Lazar?
that name sounds
Uh,
familiar,
he's
but
somebody
I can't
who
place
used to work at Area 51, and he
it.
kind of like came out with a lot of information, and a lot of the stuff actually turned out to be true. Like, he even described hand scanners, like fingerprint scanners, before they existed to the
Now
public.
that's somebody I would like to just sit down and have a drink with and just
So
talk.
he said that the gray aliens that uh, they were in contact with and had like their ships, they were originally from the Zeta Reticuli system.
Hmm.
So it's actually really weird how like that matches up with what the other theory is about the star map.
Yeah, and it can't be one of those things like this guy worked at one of the most secure places in the entire world. He can't just like throw out details and be like, "Oh, it's fine."
Well,
Like,
here's the
no,
thing.
he had to be on top of it.
Maybe I'll do a video on it at some point, like on Bob Lazar, because he's a really interesting guy. Um, but a lot of the stuff that he has said ended up like coming to fruition. And there's still
Oh,
a lot of things that he has said that hasn't been released yet. So
oh
it's,
no.
yeah, it's really crazy. Like, when you learn everything that he said that he's seen, and same thing could be said for like Tom DeLonge from Blink 182.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard about him and aliens? I might do a video on that at some point as well, but
You should because like I've heard like bits and pieces, but I haven't like took a deep dive into it.
I will go and break it down. Uh, in short, the U.S. government asked him to slowly drip feed alien information
To
to
Blink from Blink 182?
to get people used to the idea of aliens, so that when they make themselves known, which should be soon, we'll be ready. This is what Tom DeLonge says. It's actually really interesting though, because Tom DeLonge actually started up a company. I think it's called like something to the stars. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But within this company, he's actually got former military like majors and captains.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's,
And shortly after he went and even like made any form of this announcement, shortly after that, the U.S. government actually did go and disclose a whole bunch of like UFO videos, and they confirmed that they did have a sector of the military that was just for looking into UFOs.
That's wild.
Yep. So
Maybe Trump wanting Space Force wasn't such a bad idea after all.
I was really sad.
Maybe homie had the right idea.
I was really sad when he was like, "No, there are no aliens" or whatever. Just because I thought if anybody was going to blow the whistle, it would have been Trump.
Oh, 110%.
But then not long after he went with the Space Force.
There are no such thing as aliens. If there were aliens, I would have seen them. They would have been the most alien of aliens.
They would have been great aliens, okay?
Oh, that's just... Okay, so... the government came to Blink-182 and said, "Hey guys, we need you."
It's actually just Tom DeLonge, and it's because he did so much research on his own, and he actually like put together a book. And
so he got put on a watch list.
Pretty much.
And the government's we need to talk to this guy.
He sent the book to the government. He wanted to know hey, is my stuff actually correct? And the way he describes it, and I don't want to get into too much detail on it, it's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video, but the way he describes it is that the military pretty much kidnapped him and took him to a hotel for 3 weeks while they interrogated him about this.
What?
Yeah. They were like, "Where did you get this information?" And he was just like, "Research."
The internet. Oh my god. That's insane.
Yeah. It's a really good book, though. It's a really good book, though. It's called Secret Machines. It's written by Tom DeLonge and somebody else. I forget what his name is, but it's a pretty interesting book.
I now know my next read on my Kindle.
I think it's on there. All right. Did you have any other questions or comments on this one?
No? Other than oh my it's just
and keep in mind, those of you watching at home, not saying aliens are real or not. It's obviously up for you to decide. I personally believe aliens exist to some degree. I don't think that it's possible for the universe to be as big as it is, with as many stars and planets and everything, that we are the only life out there. I think that's just dumb to say. Whether or not they've been here, completely different story and completely different theories that we can get into in another video.
Yeah, and if you want to bring people, I've always thought there's always some sort of extra something out there, and then there'll be folks that'll bring a type of religion or some type of holy power into it. You cannot look at me and tell me that those deities do not have enough of a sense of humor to do that just to troll on us.
Oh, definitely.
They would. 1,000%. I will go to my grave.
I actually got into a conversation with one of my former pastors about it. He was just like, "No, they don't exist." And I'm like, "Says who?" And he was just like, "Well, they're not mentioned." He's just like, "Well, they're not mentioned in the Bible. And God tells us everything that we need to know about." I'm like, "So who's to say that we didn't know, didn't need to know about it?"
I can see
there's lots
Paul
of things.
And Matthew and John and all of them writing down, and then Jesus being like, "Hey, I need you to omit this part. They're not supposed to know."
Okay,
and
now we're getting
don't question the Son of God.
Now I feel like we're getting into ancient aliens territory here. Which, again, whole nother topic for a whole nother video. Thank you, Lee, so much for joining us in today.
Thank you for having me. I've had a fantastic time, and I cannot wait to see more.
That's awesome, because the next freak show that we do is actually going to be the history of Halloween.
Yes! I love this. This is great.
So, yeah, that about does it for this video, everybody. We'll see you in the next one. Bye. Stay spooky.
Okay. Hey everybody, it's Moose and Monk here. I have some very special news that not even Monk knows about, so this is going to be a surprise for everybody but me. I am currently working on some super special and super exclusive Halloween merchandise for the channel.
Really?
Um, yes,
Holy.
I have.
Go ahead, keep talking. I just heard my echo there. It was weird.
I'm sorry. I have two or three different designs that I am working on. Um, I am very excited. I think that this time we will be able to offer um, hoodies and t-shirts. Um, there is there's going to be two that are, kind of quotes from us, and there is going to be one very special Monk and Moose shirt design that is Halloween themed, and I am so excited.
Me too now.
I'm
Shit.
I'm really ready for you guys to see these. I am still working on getting them drawn up and stuff and getting the actual design together. But once I get everything, I will post pictures of our options like I did last time on the Twitter page, and for the next freak show that we have all of it together. I highly doubt that I'll have it together by the time this one comes out, but if so, we'll put it somewhere on the screen. But yeah, I'll put it on the Twitter for sure whenever I get them figured out, and you can message myself, you can message our Twitter page, and we'll get that taken care of. We'll get all the payment information taken care of because we don't really have like a site that we're set up through. So yeah, we're getting some new merch, some exclusive Halloween merch.
I'm
Of course, we
stoked.
still offer all of our other merchandise options. Um, the other shirts and stuff that we've made in the past, those are all still available. The sentient pants, the freak show, the moose and monk ones, those are available year round, but these are going to be exclusively for Halloween. So I think that October, November is going to be the only time that these are available, and then I may be working on some exclusive Christmas ones for December. It'd probably only be two for that holiday, but yeah, some holiday ones for the wintertime too. So,
And
yeah.
the next freak show should actually be uh the story in the background of Halloween.
Oh shit. Mm,
So that should be another fun one. Like this one
yeah.
that was really fucking awesome and fucking stupid OBS
Um,
fucked up the sorry, go ahead.
Also, a lot of you guys know that I just went on vacation to Disney and Universal and Halloween Horror Nights, and I am actually working on getting some stuff put together so that we can make a vlog type thing. And
Lots of editing.
yeah, lots of editing for Monk. So
It's okay.
that'll be coming out, and at the end of that, because I don't have a whole lot of footage, I got what I could, and you know, it was a crazy trip. It was for adults at Disney World, and we were kind of like go 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 the whole time. So at the end of that, I do believe that I'm just gonna do a little segment kind of like this, where I am talking about my experience at Halloween Horror Nights and how I rate the houses on the two scales that I use, and just what my overall thoughts on that event were, because it was absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, that's gonna be a lot of editing for Monk.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
So,
All right, and we'll see you guys in the next video.
stay spooky.
Bye.